Was the lesson last time. Today, I want, if I was to put a title for this part of the presentation, I would say the frustrations and the agony of change. What does that mean? On the road to change, when people want to change things, when a society wants to change, when a masjid wants to change, when a family wants to change, when an individual wants to change, it's not a smooth process. There is a lot of frustrations in it. And I start by a story. It's a symbolic story, right? But it's very significant, and you'll see it very well represented in today's presentation. And this story is not a story of a companion. It's not a story of a righteous person. It's a story of a good moral person who saw a cat. You know, a tree branch is over a mountain, and a cat is trapped there, right? And the cat is meowing, you know. And so that man had some empathy. So he started climbing this tree, right? And trying to put his hand and get the cat, to save the cat. Every time he puts his hand out, the cat would scratch. And he would get hurt. And then he tries, okay, let's try again. And, you know, and puts his hand to hold the cat would scratch him. And he started bleeding. And then eventually the man decided that's it. He just grabbed the cat, right? And pulled the cat. And the cat was just all over him, you know, scratching his hand and meowing. And his hand started bleeding so bad. But he managed to get the cat and come down and save the cat. So somebody asked him, said, what are you doing? Look what the cat did to you. You're a good person. You're trying to do good. The cat is ungrateful. This cat didn't. Look, you're wounded. And then he said this piece that I think is the motive, or like the motto of today. He said, it's the character of the cat to scratch. A cat is afraid. It's the trait of a cat to scratch. And I want my trait to be compassionate and empathic. I want, despite I'm trying to save the cat, yet the cat is scratching me. When we try to change, one of the biggest hurdles, one of the biggest frustrations, the people we're trying to serve, the people we're trying to offer change to, sometimes are the very people that fight us. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the biggest example of this. And I quote one thing and we'll start. Remember him in the Battle of Uhud? He's fighting wicked people. People that tortured and killed and did so, and he's in the battlefield fighting them. But Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is fighting them for them, not fighting them to destroy them. And how do you know that? In the Battle of Uhud, when he was injured and they threw a stone at his face and he started bleeding, what was his response? He actually was very concerned. Why? He raised his hands and said, how can people that do this to their prophet ever attain success? He was afraid that now you injured me. I'm a prophet, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I'm trying to save you. I'm bringing you good. They're fighting him. They're fighting their source of salvation, if you will. And now they did this to him. So he was so afraid that Allah is going to destroy them. So he raised his hands and he said, Allahumma aghfir liqawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. Allahumma hdi qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. Dear Lord, forgive my people. They do not know. Guide my people. They do not know. Don't destroy them. When did he say that? In the battlefield. You get the idea? He's not sitting home doing nothing. He's in the battlefield fighting. But his heart is what? I don't want to destroy all of you. The very people that sometimes we try to serve, the very people that we try to cater to their needs, sometimes they will injure us on the path of change. The prophetic way is what? Sometimes I have to fight. But I do not fight you to destroy you. I fight you for you. And one sentence. There is a big difference between winning over you, an argument between a man and a wife, husband and wife. It happens a lot, right? My point and my point. You're trying to win. Sometimes I win. But you know what happened? I win over the person. I demolish the person. I made the person feel terrible. Your argument is nonsense. Your point of view is nothing. I destroyed. Now I made my point. I won. But you won over the person. Is it that I want to win over the person or win the person over? There is a big difference. Right? And the prophetic way, on the road of change, we will encounter some resistance and some wounds from the people we're trying to serve. Do not let that turn us away. Sidq. You come to the masjid one time. I say this all the time in Egypt. You go to the masjid and the first thing that happens is what? You leave your shoes, you go inside, you come outside, somebody stole your shoes. What happens? Some of us say, what is this? Look at Muslims. Yeah, I will never come to the masjid again. Really? Really? You know, really, is that it? Sometimes you try to do good for a community and you really get hurt. Do I continue? If I have sidq, if I'm true for Allah, I will continue no matter what, because it's for Allah. Right? So on the road of change, the worst type of pain is not the pain of our enemies. It's the pain of the people that we love, what they can do to us. Right? And not stopping. So you will see this lesson manifested, inshallah, today. Let's go back to the line of the story, and I hope, are we okay, or you need some more time for the chairs? You're good? Here, inshallah. So I'll do a quick recap for last time, like 2 minutes, and then we'll jump into the line of event, right? So last time, we saw what the state of the Muslims were before the Crusades, how the Muslims themselves were divided, right? And we learned about the emergence of the Ismaili sect. We learned about the assassins. We saw how the Seljuks was themselves divided among each other. We also saw how the Franks landed and the performance of the Muslims meeting them, right? And we said when they landed, numerous battles happened. And in all the battles, the Muslims lost. One thing I want to point out, that we discussed the Battle of Dur al-Yum, and I said the Seljuk ruler that fought was Qilj Arsalan. Many people got confused. Is that Alba Arsalan? No, that's, if those who know, he's not Alba Arsalan. Alba Arsalan is a great Muslim ruler that lived before the Crusades in the time of Nizam al-Mulk. He was a great man. This is Qilj Arsalan. It's a different person, just correction. So we saw how the Franks landed, how they were very determined, and what they did on the way to Jerusalem, the massacres they did, what they did in the city of Ma'arra. We discussed the Cannibalism Act, what they did to the city of Jerusalem itself, how they killed 30,000 Muslims in the Aqsa Mosque, what they did to the Jews and the Christians in the city, how terrible it was, right? And we saw that the response of the Muslims were very lacking at the time. That's what we discussed last time. And eventually we stopped at this point, I think, is we said eventually what happened, a situation came where the Franks took all the cities by the coast, Beirut, Saida, Akka, Haifa, all the cities by the coast, and Jerusalem. And they established a kingdom, if you will. And then a very strange thing happened. A stage of homostasis started to happen, meaning what? The Muslim rulers of the time started to see what? It's not that bad after all. We can coexist. They have those cities, we have those cities, and kind of an equilibrium started to happen in the region, right? The one thing to note, what we'll see now in today's presentation, how did things change? Where did the change come from? Right? This is what we're going to see today, inshallah. The one thing to just remember that the situation is, as I said, the Franks are by the coast, the Muslims are divided. So the three important cities in Sham is Damascus, Aleppo, and Al-Mosul. And the first thing to notice, those three cities are not united. You had three different rulers, and those rulers are sometimes fighting each other. And then Egypt, which is more to the south, is under the Ismailis and completely out of the picture at this point, right? And this was, if you will, the political situations at that moment, right? So let's move forward and see what happened, the road to change, right? And this is the summary, again, of what we discussed, what happened last time. I'll skip this for now. Scholars. By the way, also, another question is books, right? So I have the books references if you're interested. Also, there are books written by the scholars that lived in that time, like Imam al-Ghazali, Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi. Those books are translated. If you're interested, come to me, I'll give you the reference, inshallah, right? Bismillah. So let's start this time. So what happened, as I said, the Muslims living by the Franks started to kind of want to coexist. As long as I'm in my chair, it's okay, right? It's a mentality that we see today. As long as I'm ruling and I'm still sitting on my chair, I don't want to disturb peace. I don't want to do anything. I want the situation to stay as it is. So one of those rulers did something really strange. His name is Ridwan in Aleppo. And he had the Ismailis and the assassins around him. And he started communicating with the Franks. He doesn't want them to attack him, right? So he said, let's do a treaty. Let's do a peace treaty. We'll do and they said, for us to do a treaty with you, we need 3 conditions. And look at the conditions. Condition number 1. What's our first thing? You pay a yearly tribute for us. You pay every year 20,000 dinar or 30,000 dinars for us. He agrees. 2, every single transaction happening in Aleppo, every single business transaction, we have a tax on it. Okay. You know when you pay sales taxes in the United States, 5% or whatever, right? They told him every merchant in your city that does any transaction, 5% goes to us. He agreed. The third was actually very humiliating. They said, okay, on your biggest mosque in Aleppo, here is a cross. Go put it on top of your masjid. And he agreed. Just to show you that. And of course, the people in Aleppo were very upset. One of those people, one figure that was doing something and triggered some change, a scholar by the name of Ibn Khashab. This scholar was a type that's, you know, the active ones, the one that are on the minbar, activism. He's this type. Can get to people, telling them we have to do something. So he went to this ruler, Ridwan, and told him, this is not acceptable. You cannot put a cross on top of the masjid. And I know that you're afraid from them, but you know what? I have a solution. He said, I know you cannot fight them by yourself. Let me go out. I will manage to bring you help. I will go out, convince other Muslims to come to our aid. And then you do not have to do such kind of a treaty with them. What do you think the ruler of Aleppo did to this scholar? Kill him? Hung him, kill him, prison him? What do you think? How many says he sent him to prison? Okay, kill him. He did something completely strange. What do you guess he did? Neither of those. Not exile even. He did something even you won't even think about it. He told him, absolutely okay. Go ahead. Huh? Why? Why did you think he said that? Get rid of him was one, but there is something else. He was thinking, Ya akhi, those Muslims he'll go out. He'll go speak to Muslims. In reality, Muslims won't come. This man with a turban, what will he do? Muslims are so out of it. He will never convince any of the other rulers to come. So why appear bad? Let me appear good. Of course, go. And I know the result. He's going to come back with nothing. And I'm not bad. But to his surprise, Ibn Khashab started leaving and he headed to the city of Al-Mosul. In the background, scholars were working. And this we'll discuss more, right? There was a scholarly movement for the last 10 years. This is 1 decade after the crusade, right? And they were starting to change people. So there was one figure, one man, and this is a very important lesson. His name is Mawdud. He was situated in Al-Mosul, and he's one man that championed, we have to stand against the Crusaders. He started gathering an army, and he did some battles with them. He won some battles, small battles, they're small, but he was doing something, right? So Ibn Khashab knew who to go to. Mawdud, they describe him a righteous person. Prays on time, prays the Sunnah Salah, fast Mondays and Thursdays, loving the hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, recites Quran. So there is a righteous person, one person. So he went to Mawdud and he told him, listen, the situation in Aleppo is terrible, our ruler, and he promised that if you come, he will let you in the city and he will unite forces with you and you both can fight the Crusaders. And Mawdud was very, very happy with this unity, right? He said, absolutely. So he gathered his forces and went with Ibn Khashab to Aleppo. What do you think the ruler of Aleppo did when he found that? Now, to the Ridwan's surprise, this scholar came back with an army. Now what happened? He imprisoned Ibn Khashab, threw him in prison, right? Locked the gates of the city. This army will never come in. And he contacted the Franks. We have a joint treaty. There is a dangerous, because you know why he did that? He viewed Mawdud as very dangerous. Why? People love this guy. If I let him in my city, he'll take my chair. Which is the lesser of two evils? See how they're thinking? As long as I stay on my chair, it's okay. So he contacted the Franks and said, we have a common enemy. And the Franks came to his aid. Maudud found himself in a very difficult situation. He's outside of the city, and now you have the Franks, and the Aleppo is against you. And Ibn Khashab is in the prison, right? So he did something interesting. He said, okay, khalas, I'm not going to fight this battle. But guess what? Maybe if Aleppo is not going to unite with me, there is another city, the capital of Sham, Damascus. Let me go speak to the ruler of Damascus. And I will tell him, we just join forces, we do something together. So he contacted the leader of Damascus. And he went to the city of Damascus and offered the same thing. He said, listen, I'm just coming here. I have an army. Let's unite together. We can do something. We can fight together. And the ruler of Damascus opened the gates of Damascus and said, of course, absolutely. Why not? Come. And he celebrated. And he allowed the army of Aleppo and Maudud to come in. We will join forces, of course. I will help you fight, right? And we unite and we fight the Franks together. And it looked for the first time that there are two Muslim cities uniting to fight the Franks. And then, to the surprise of everyone, what happens next? On a Friday morning, Maudud is going to pray Salat al-Fajr. And as he's praying in the front rows, Allahu Akbar, one of the people in the front rows, a regular masjid-going person. Nobody doubted him. Once they started Salah, he takes a poisonous dagger and stabs Maudud to death. It turns out he's an assassin. That man, remember the assassins? They hide their assassins, they pretend, right? So nobody doubted him, and he killed Maudud in the masjid in Salat al-Fajr. The question now for you, who did that? Why did the assassins attack Maudud? Who do you think did that to him? Everybody said, we know who. Like, this guy here, Ridwan, this guy, he's the guy affiliated with the assassins. So he saw him so he contacted the assassins to get rid of him, right? In reality, it wasn't Ridwan. Who was it? Yeah, who told the Ismailis to kill him? They were hired. It's not the Franks. It's the ruler of Damascus. Same thing. This man is dangerous, so he played a different game. And his game was what? I assassinate him. People blame my opponent. You see the politics? Do you see what's the problem with Muslims at the time? Is it the Franks? What is this called? What is driving this? What is driving this level of treason? Shaitan. But what is the heart? What's the disease of the heart? Love of the dunya. Love of the dunya, which love of dunya means two things. Love of wealth and power and status. That's what the Prophet ﷺ warned us. If we have this, we will kill. So as he wants power, he wants his seat, anything is okay. You see this problem? It's inflicted the ummah to such a case that the Franks they're not even the biggest enemy, right? Those rulers, it's a traitor. And subhanallah, today, we still have them. Because I'll tell you what, كَذَلِكَ قَالَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ مِثْلَ قَوْلِهِمْ تَشَابَهَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. The Quran says, like those people say, the people before them said the same thing, because their hearts are alike. So when you read the Quran, when you read history, you'll find what? Some of the things that you read, you'll see today, people are saying the same thing. And the Quran tells us, yeah, times are different, the clothes are different, the technology, but the heart is the same disease. Arrogance, love of status, love of wealth. The hearts are exactly the same. So they will do the same things. Right? So that was a very big setback. And to the extent, Ibn al-Athir writes, the Franks sent a letter to the Muslims, mocking the Muslims. Can you believe that? They sent a letter saying the following, إن أمة قتلت عميدها في يوم عيدها في بيت معبودها كان حقا على الله أن يبيدها. He says the following translation, because they killed Maudud on a Friday, Fajr Salah, in the masjid, right? So the letter said the following, a nation that kills its leader, the one that's fighting for it, in the house of its Lord, of their Lord, on the day of their Eid, Friday, they deserve that their Lord surely should exterminate them. Can you imagine? Like, they are telling Muslims, if you're like that, what do you expect? There is no religion that will tell you you'll ever be successful. Of course, you'll have to be exterminated, right? So, and again, Muslims were very disappointed, right? Now, what happened next is something really interesting. The news went to Al-Mosul and Baghdad. And the Sultan of Al-Mosul heard that his best lieutenant, Maudud, was assassinated. And he heard what happened in Aleppo, that he took the army and the Muslims of Aleppo and Damascus, and he was so upset. And he said, that's it. I will put those people in line. And he gathered a huge army. All the army from the region of Al-Mosul and Diyarbakir, all this region, right? One of the strongest armies. And he marched and he said, you know what? I'm going to teach them a lesson. Those Muslims, of Aleppo and this guy in Damascus, they need to be put in line, right? So he gathered the army and marched. To his surprise, he found the following scene, right? And you tell me how you feel about this. He was surprised to meet an army. There is another army coming in front of him. And the army is composed of the following. On the left is the army of Aleppo. On the right is the army of Damascus. In the center are the Franks. They all united against him. You know why? They all saw him as what? A common enemy. Do you see what's going on? Now, the interesting part, and this is a very important spiritual lesson, the response of this sultan, what he did is what? He was so disgusted with the Muslim response, so he didn't fight. And he swore, I will never help those Muslims again. I mean, why did this happen? They came and told me Aleppo needs help. I tried to help them, now look what they did. So he was so upset. Remember how we started? So disgusted and said, you know what? After that, don't ask me to help you again. And he took his army and withdrew. What's the problem you see here? Yes. We never unite is the core of the problem. But the response of this person has an issue. And this is what we're speaking about. If I'm doing something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how other people react to me should not make me stop. If this is about Jerusalem, if every single in Palestine, every single in Egypt betrays the cause, I will still go for it. Do you get it? Because sometimes you say, Ya akhi, look at them. They did. It's not about the people. This is about Allah. And is this for the sake of Allah? If it's the sake of Allah, you don't stop. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, when you see Salahuddin Ayubi and Nuruddin Zinki, the same pattern will happen. The same thing, that every time you want to do something, you don't only find your enemy, you find people of our own skin standing with the enemy. Is it any different today? I hope you understand what I'm speaking about, right? You can do your own reflections. This is the sunnah, right? Don't let that frustrate you. Sincerity is about what? I'm not doing it. Look at the Muslims, look at Saudi Arabia, look at Egypt, look at this. It's about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have to be able to continue, right? Now, when this happened, he was so frustrated and the Muslims were so upset, right? And time passed. Change happened. Maybe a decade later, I'm moving like 10 years more, right? Something interesting happened that triggered the change. Eventually, people die, right? The sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that ruler in Aleppo, Ridwan, died. Like everybody else. When he died, something interesting happened. The Ismailis were entrenched in Aleppo. And they had hopes that now they are going to seize control of that city. That's going to be an Ismaili city. And the assassins were very interested in this because he brought them to power. And they were all over the place, right? So now a shift of power started happening. And the Sunnis in the city didn't want that. So the Ismailis went to the Franks, and said, listen, we have people inside. If you help us take this city, we promise we're going to be allies. We'll give you different forts. We'll give you taxes. We'll be your buddy kind of, right? But help us get in power. When this happened, remember the scholar Ibn Khashab? He was the one that stood against them. He started speaking to the masses. He started delivering ceremonies that this is not allowed, that this is a deviant sect, that what they're doing is not permissible. And he started a revolt against the Ismailis in Aleppo. And eventually people started revolting, right? And the Ismailis were losing control. And the Franks marched and started to siege the city of Aleppo. And what they did in that siege, I mean, we have accounts, very bad things. Of it is They went to a Muslim graveyard and they started digging out the Muslim bodies. They got one body, tied it to a horse, dragged it in front of everyone, and they said, look, this is your Muhammad, astaghfirullah, sallallahu alayhi wa. And they started mocking the Prophet in front, in front of the Muslims, right? One of them got the Quran, the Muslim, our book, tied it with a rope to the tail of his horse. And the horse would go, you know what I mean? And it will go on the Quran. And he started walking in front of them and laughing and pointing, look, your book. And they started sieging the city, and we will show you. Ibn Khashab didn't wait. He took a delegation, and what he said, I have to go get help. And he left. There was another person in Al-Mosul. And I want you to notice something. He was looking for what? People that are fighting for the cause. There were people that started the fight, but they're not Salahuddin yet, right? Like, by the way, one lesson, Mawdud. He didn't live long enough to see any change, did he? So, if you're from the point of view of Mawdud, I tried to do something, and then what happened? Nothing. Was it really nothing? This is the spark. Are we living in the same age? There is a time frame that comes where you'll see heroes come, unsung heroes. They will try to do something, and they're the spark, and they die, and they never see the result. Yet, this man is praiseworthy. Right? You see what I'm saying? He's not known. Salahuddin is known. But that's the spark. Those were the and you'll see. So there was another man by the name of Al-Bursuqi. You don't have to remember all those names. But the reason I'm mentioning them, those are people we don't speak about. Because they lived in an era that they tried their best. They're great people. But the people around them were not helping them. Do you get the idea? So it's not the absence of a ruler. Sometimes the people are not there yet. Right? So Al-Bursuqi was the same way. Righteous, prays on time, reads Quran, diligent in fighting the Franks, many small battles. He actually won some battles against them, right? So Ibn Khashab went to him and explained the situation. Al-Bursuqi was seriously sick at the time. So he made an oath. If Allah makes me recover from this sickness, I will take all my troops and come to your aid. There is a lesson there. He didn't say, wait a minute, remember what you did to Mawdud? Now you want my help again? Ya akhi, you deserve it. Because sometimes we're angry and see, let them taste. This is what they get for doing this to me. It's not about them. It's about what? It's about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I cannot let city the Aleppo fall to the Ismailis and the Franks. And Allah, subhanallah, in few days, he fully recovered. And he gathered his army. And he started marching towards the city of Aleppo. When the Franks saw him, they backed up, lined their lines to prepare for battle. Al-Bursuqi did something really interesting. He did not engage them in battle. He immediately ordered, no, open the gates of Aleppo and let me go in the city. Yeah, I don't want to fight them right now. Why? Why do you think he did that? Exactly. I'll tell you what is more strategic. The unity of the Muslims is so important, right? If he takes the city, what happens? Now you have two cities united, right? Plus, the city needs help. And there is the fortification of the city. I'm not hasty for a battle. Yes, I want to fight them. But he said, no, let me go inside the city. Let me fortify Aleppo. Let me work on the infrastructure. Next year, we'll come out with a joint army of Aleppo and Al-Mosul now, and we will fight them. And that's exactly what he did. And when the Franks saw that, now the city has a Muslim army in it, right? And Mosul, and they ended up withdrawing. And of course, who was very upset about this? The Ismailis were seriously upset. So can anybody expect what happened next? Friday morning, right? Bursuqi wakes up, he saw a dream. And he said, I saw a dream, and in my dream, I saw 5 dogs. They tried to attack me. And I took my sword, and I warded 2 of them off, but the rest got me. And people said, yes, Sayyidi, please, 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 don't go to the masjid today. Don't, please, right? And he said, what are you speaking about? It's a fard. I'm a Muslim. Salat al-Fajr, I will not leave. And then he said, look, and he opened the Quran. And the ayah that came is Surah Al-Ahzab. وَكَانَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ قَدَرًا مَقْدُورًا. and the command and the orders of Allah it will happen. He said, see, I can't leave the command of Allah. If so be it, this is the shara of Allah that I should pray, I will go. And guess exactly that happened. He goes to Salah, 5 assassins jump on him, he had his sword, he warded 2, and the rest killed al-Bursuqi in the masjid. Again, back to square one. But it didn't stop there. Another Friday prayer. Who's next? Who's the man that's really causing trouble for the Ismailis now? This scholar that dared speak against them, right? On the Friday prayer, on the minbar, in front of everybody. He's giving the khutbah. One of them runs towards him, stabs him in front of everybody. And Ibn Khashab dies. Another scholar, Al-Harawi, the Qadi of Baghdad, remember him from last time? The one that went to the Khalifa, and right? He was also vocally very active. A Friday prayer, Al-Harawi stabbed by an assassin to death. And at this point, you see, there are people trying to do something, right? Who's opposing them? They're fighting the Franks. But there is another fight going on. With the fight with our own kind. The disease of love of this wealth, the wealth and status is so powerful that it can turn a Muslim against another Muslim. There are some people that will not hesitate killing 1 million Muslims to stay in power. They will not think twice. I don't want to name names. Look at the last 10, 20 years and you'll see what I'm speaking about. That's a serious disease, right? And that was happening at that time. And everybody felt, Ya akhi, it's a setback again. Bursuqi, the one that was going to fight, died. But by the grace of Allah, what was happening is that scholars were working in the background. And at this point, I want to point something out. This is the political line, right? With the events I'm speaking about is politics. What are the scholars doing? The last 20 years, there were 2 types of scholars, right? One, I would call it the Ibn Khashab style. What is the Ibn Khashab style? And I wrote it down. They focus on current issues. What's happening today, right? So activism. They seek immediate solutions to problems now. Aleppo is going to fall. I need a solution today, right? Their style is what? They're very emotional. They can motivate. So they give fiery speeches, right? That's their way. So they can motivate the masses. They can motivate leaders, right? So you know the activism style? Some of us are this way. So those people did exist. And this is one of them, right? And they focused on what? Afflictions and atrocities. So they will tell people, didn't you see what the Ismailis did? You know, look what happened. Look at the disasters. So they will ignite this fire, right? So they focused on current problems. They were directly involved with the rulers, as you can see, right? And the politics. Nevertheless, there was another group of scholars that I think, if not equally important, more important. And they took the line of Imam al-Ghazali. So we said Imam al-Ghazali, if you remember, he was in Nizamiya school. Imam al-Ghazali was living in the time when the Franks came. And he saw what happened in Jerusalem. Imam al-Ghazali, if you remember his story, he was the head of a Nizamiya school, the highest school in Baghdad. But before the Crusades happened, he saw something in himself and others. He diagnosed a problem. He said the following, I'm teaching about Islam. I give wonderful lectures. And he was a master of ilm al-kalam and philosophy, and and he was very well respected by scholars. He was the mind of his time, right? Great Imam. They call him Hujjat al-Islam, the proof of Islam. But he said, and you can read that, the book is called Al-Munqidh min al-Dalal, Deliverance from Error. He wrote himself what happened to him. It's a very interesting, this is his own story by his own handwriting. He said, I looked into myself and I found out I'm preaching about things, but I'm not changing. I am inflicted. The love of status that afflicts the rulers, guess what? It afflicts scholars too. Today, the same thing. You put a scholar in front of the light and on Facebook and then social media and you have 1 million followers, what happens to that scholar? Love of status can inflict religious people too. Even more seriously than rulers. Because now I seek status by ilm. And it appears how? And in the time of, he noticed other scholars are debating each other. They want the spotlight. And he noticed something very serious. He noticed that I'm speaking about things I am not changing. My heart isn't, I'm not doing the things. I'm not walking the talk. I'm not this way. I speak about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and qiyam and akhlaq, and I'm not a forgiving person. I'm not a patient person. I'm not. What's wrong? You see what I'm saying? I know, but I didn't change. And he saw that I needed, what he said, I needed to pull back. And he left everything. He left his top position in, the dean of a Nidamiyya school. And he went to work as a janitor in a masjid. Nobody knew who he is. And he spent years in that situation. What was he doing? He was seriously working on himself. I need to change. As a scholar, I need to reflect the light of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not only by my talk, the way I am, the way I pray, the way I do dhikr, my character. I need changed. So he started this inward reformation, if you will. Then he returned back. When he returned back a completely changed man. Altered everything that he said before. And his method, his diagnosis was simple. He said the following. When people are sick, they go for doctors, right? If I'm sick, alhamdulillah, we have insurance. You go and you get the doctor. What happens if the doctor is sick? Where do you go? Do you get the idea? We don't have, our doctors are themselves inflicted with the disease. They can't cure us because they themselves have the disease. And he said, the doctors of the human heart are the scholars. And he said, the problem of our time is not the rulers. The scholars have issues. He saw that the scholars are aligned with the rulers. You see the problem? The scholars are not doing their role. The scholars are not teaching people properly. They are not modeling what should happen. And he said, we need new generation of scholars that are taught differently. That it's not about power. It's not about, the first thing he said, you should not be under any sultan. So I will not work in a Nidamiyya school. No. So he went to his village, 200 students only. And people told him, a Nidamiyya, the school, the sultan. No. Scholars should be independent from the sultan. You get the idea? Separation of, checks and balances in the United States. How can you have Al-Azhar under the control of the government? And the president appoints Al-Azhar. How? You get what I'm saying? This religious institution should be completely independent of politics. They should be independent. So Al-Ghazali started Ayub. And he started raising a new group of scholars. His diagnosis was what? The ummah is sick. And you don't ask a sick person, the heart is dead. You don't ask a dead person to stand up and fight. The real problem of this ummah is not, as I said, numbers or... No. It's the affinity for defeat. It's not defeat. This word that I'm using here, he's treating what? Why do we have an affinity for defeat? Why are we so much like under the feet of everybody? Why do we run away? The problem is the hearts, and it's not the rulers only. Rulers, leaders, the soldiers in the battlefield, they have the disease too. So his way was what? It's a long solution. It's not a short-term solution. I have to work on a new generation of scholars that will work on a new generation of people. They have to talk to the masses to change them inwardly. And that this will eventually lead to a new group of people. So we had two types of scholars. They worked together, not against each other. They didn't blame each other. You know what I mean? So if you see a scholar working here, and that's, leave him alone, right? You see somebody working here, leave him alone. We need both. We need to work together, not against each other, right? So this was going in the background, right? Now, the result of this was what? The years are passing, and you will see people started to change. And we'll see what happened next. When al-Bursuqi was assassinated, right, by the assassins, his follower was I would say the first step towards a true change. The man that came after al-Bursuqi, one of his leaders that followed, was a man by the name of Imad ad-Din Zinki. And this is the first step towards change. So Imad al-Din Zenki came to power, and you'll see now something different. Imad al-Din Zenki, if you describe him, give me a description of him. How was he? I'll say he's a soldier. He's in the battlefield, loved tents, always in armor. He was loved by his soldiers. So he has a soldier mentality. But he had a vision. He identified two things, if I was to sum it. He said the problem of the Muslims lie in two things that I need to change. Number one, the reason we cannot fight the Franks, because we're not united. So my first goal is what? I need to unite Muslims. We can't fight them like this. We can't fight Aleppo alone, Mosul. No, we need to unite first, then fight. So her first target was what? I need to unite Muslims. Target number one. Target number two, justice is key. There is no advancement. You cannot establish any civilization if justice is not established. What he saw was what? The absence of justice, especially in soldiers. Soldiers before that used to oppress people. You know, if you're a soldier, you can go to a peasant, take his cow, take whatever. I'm strong, I'm a soldier, I'm the soldier of the Sultan, right? So he said, I need to discipline my soldiers. So he started basically on his army, a disciplined army. So he did two things. If you are a soldier of Imad al-Din Zenki, you're not a mercenary. I'll take good care of you. I'll give you an iqta'. I'll take care of your wife. If you die, your wife and your children, the state will take care of them. So he really gave his soldiers proper living, right? And then now you're a soldier of a state. You're not a mercenary switching, right? And it's expected of you that you're disciplined. And he said, any soldier of mine that will oppress anyone, he punished severely. The problem with Imad al-Din, if scholars take one thing against him, he was harsh. So the way he saw it is the following. The way to establish justice, if I hear about a soldier oppressing a farmer, I will crucify him. Discipline, right? Muslims need an iron fist. So you're my soldier, I'll treat you well. You transgress against someone, whoa, you will see my punishment. So I'll straighten up Muslims using what? Strength, power. He's a soldier, right? Same thing. How do you unite Muslims together? If you don't want to unite, I'll fight you. So he started doing what? His method. He started expansion, right? So he started to expand the areas. Fight the other Muslims. Get a fort after the fort. They're traitors, and you fight them. And he started expanding. And eventually he said, you know what? Damascus is the very important city. I need to unite the city of Damascus, right? And the ruler of Damascus, of course, realizing the danger that, we have now a very powerful ruler here, he made an alliance with who? The Franks, of course, right? So he had an alliance with the Franks, and that's treason. So, of course, Imad al-Din Zenki said, see, he's a traitor. I can't let this happen. I will take Damascus, right? And he gathered his forces, laid siege to the city of Damascus. Immediately, the ruler called, the Franks. They came to his help. The siege dragged. Damascus is a very well-fortified city. It's the capital of Sham, right? You have the Franks on his back. The siege extended, and he could not take the city of Damascus. So the ruler of Damascus used the Franks against him, right? So he unified many cities, but he could not take the city of Damascus. I'm saying this for a reason, right? And then Imad al-Din Zenki said, well, wait a minute. Maybe it's time to do something different. I have enough critical mass. Maybe I can start to do something major against the Franks, not a small battle like Mawdud. No. Is it time? Can I actually attack one of their cities? Because he saw that I have enough. I reached the critical mass. And he decided it's time for an attack. An attack on city. Let's take one of their cities. Which city should he take? Yeah, who says Edessa? Why? Why not Jerusalem? What happens if he tries to take Jerusalem? Let's see. Why not Jerusalem? Ismaili is not interested in that. Damascus he couldn't take because it's the capital, well fortified, right? Jerusalem is well fortified, but there is another concept I want you to learn, and you will see it. This is a very important concept, spiritually and strategically. What do you think will happen? Let's say he attacked Jerusalem. What do you think will happen? Everybody is going to unite against you. You see that? I'll tell you this. Let's say he attacked Jerusalem and he took Jerusalem. Because this concept, I want us to really understand. This is something I will stress in this class, because I see in our times we don't think this way. Do you know the concept of a counterattack? I'll give you a spiritual example. Ramadan is coming, right? What happens in Ramadan? Alhamdulillah, we fast. What happens in the last 10 nights of Ramadan? The last 10 nights, Laylat al-Qadr, we put all the efforts, every single ounce of energy I have, right? I put it towards the last 10 nights, of course, right? And I don't sleep and I worship maximum 100%. The day of Eid comes. How am I? Exhausted. I'm going to ask you, what do you think Shaitan will do? You attacked. See, Ramadan, you attacked and you won. You won enormous territory, right? And you moved, and Shaitan is seeing this. What do you think he will do the first day of Eid? What do you expect? This is called a counter-attack. If you have an enemy, if you have an opponent, and you attack him, even in a fight, in a martial arts, if you beat someone and he falls down, what do you think he'll do when he stands up? So you'd better be ready for what? So you don't beat him up and say, hey, I'm good. What will happen to you? That is foolish. You're foolish, right? Also, what is foolish? You go to someone much stronger than you and you slap him on the face and say, hey, I slapped him on the face. What will happen next? Did you think? Did you get the idea? This is called strategy. It's very important. If I do an action, I have to think about what? My opponent's response, right? And that if I do something, there's a counter-attack. If I take Jerusalem, what do you expect the counter-attack will be like? Is it only the people here? Who else will come? Europe will come. And I want you to see the analogy. You're not fighting the Franks here. You're fighting what? They're supported by who? Superpower. The whole Europe. They get supplies from where? Europe. Do you get the idea? So if you want to do this, you better be what? Prepared. And do you have a plan for this or not? Do you get the idea? So Imad-ud-Din Zenki thought and said, Jerusalem, definitely not. The city that's protruding the most is Edessa. It's the weakest. It lies between two of my kingdom cities. It's the weakest, and it's a protrusion inland, right? It's the weakest. That is my target. And he kept watch till he finally, he did a maneuver, actually very tricky. He took his army and he went south as if he's going to attack Damascus. So the people in Edessa said, yeah, he's out. So the ruler of Edessa went out hunting one day, and he was on watch. Once he learned that the ruler is out, he gathered his troops and immediately moved to Edessa, right? What he did in the city of Edessa was something really interesting, right? He laid siege to the city. And a new technique, a new Muslim invention happened there in the siege. So a group of Muslim engineers, he had an engineering brigade in his army, see, advanced technology, right? They had a cover, you know, like they call it the tank, basically a cover on top of them, and they started marching towards the wall of the city, covered by arrows and catapult fire, right? Once they reached the wall of the city, they started doing something really strange. They didn't do anything to the wall. They started digging. And no, they're not digging a tunnel, by the way. No. They dug, and then they went under the walls, you know, the stones, and then they started putting pillars of wood. So I want you to imagine now, they dig, so now you have the wall and what? Pillars of wood, right? And then they set the wood to fire. What will happen? And the wall falls. And now you have a gap. You get the idea? And this was shocking. The Franks didn't expect this. This is a new technique, right? So they made a gap in the wall, and the city was exposed. And Imad-ud-Din Zenki soldier rushed to the city. And Imad-ud-Din, for the first time, a Muslim army didn't just defeat the Franks, took a major city from the Franks. His soldiers took the city of Edessa from the Franks. The city of Edessa fell to the Muslims, right? And this was the first time it happens, right? It looked like, yeah, it's a victory. Imad ad-Din did not realize what this did to the Muslims. I don't know if you understand what this was. The first time Muslims succeed in some big way. Waves of hope raised. Imad ad-Din became what? A hero. Someone highly praised. Now people are interested in Imad ad-Din. More people are starting to join, right? We see someone fighting. Hey, we took the city of Edessa. Is it the first step on the change road, right? And guess what happened in Europe when they heard that the city of Edessa fell? What do you think the Pope did? See, counterattack. The Pope immediately contacted all the kings in Europe. Said, we have a problem. The Muslims seem to be recovering. They took the city of Edessa. This is not permissible. Everybody must go. And the kings started gathering. And now a major crusade is about to hit the Middle East again. Right? A crusade is going to hit, and their target is going to be what? Take the city of Edessa back. Imad ad-Din is going to face what? A crusade from Europe. The kings are coming themselves, right? But of course, it takes time. Meanwhile, Imad ad-Din started doing what? Let me expand. Now I have more Muslims joining me. Let me start expanding more. And he went and started laying siege to different cities. Remember, he uses what? He uses force, power, strength. He's a soldier, right? He's criticized by some scholars that he's a good person, but he has some defects, right? And they say among them is harshness. He's very harsh. Soldier, right? And some of us would say, yeah, those Muslims deserve it. There is no other way, right? What do you do with those Muslims, right? But what happened is something interesting. By the way, this is, if you go to Europe and you look at any castle, you usually see this, you know the concept of a moat? Why do they make a moat? Beside crocodiles, I don't think there are any crocodiles. Why the moat? What do you think this is for? Slow down. But remember I said something. How did the Muslim... You can't dig. Do you get the idea? How can you dig now, right? So things that happened in the Middle East affected the way people built castles in Europe, which is interesting, right? So this is an interesting fact too, right? Yeah. One night, Imad ad-Din Zenki is sleeping, and one of his servants stabs him to death. And we don't know what on earth is it. It seems an assassin, pretending to be a servant. Now, why, who? We don't have a clear answer who did it. Some people say, of course, the Orientalist, yeah, Imad ad-Din was harsh, so he was harsh against his servant, so his servant killed him when he's sleeping. Doesn't make sense, right? Some other people say, well, no, that servant actually was a Christian, and he was a Christian, so when Edessa fell, he was upset, so he did that, right? It looks like, from what I read, that when this person did what he did, he ran back to the castle that Imad ad-Din was laying siege to. So it looks like a possibility that the people of this castle contacted the assassins to kill Imad ad-Din. Wallahu a'lam. We don't know why, we don't know who. We know that this happened, right? So Imad ad-Din Zenki dies. And at this point, Muslims, you can feel it, right? We just had someone, for God's sake, right? Someone that did something. The worst piece of the news was the following. After Imad ad-Din Zenki died, the Franks said it's a golden opportunity, right? So what happened? They attacked the city of Edessa. The city of Edessa had Armenian population, many Christians. So the Christians inside communicated with the Franks, will open the gates. Imad ad-Din is not there. The Franks came and their army took the city back from the Muslims. So now it looks like what? Back to square one, right? Again, right? Those assassins, somebody dies and you start to lose hope, right? This was a turning point in history. What happened next is a completely different era. So this setback was actually a beginning of a new era. And the way it happened, the moment the city of Edessa fell. And the Franks were celebrating inside, drinking and having a party. The son of Imaduddin Zenki. This man is greater than Salahuddin Ayubi. He's the one that led to a true reformation for Muslims. The son of Imaduddin Zenki, Nuruddin Zenki, Nuruddin Mahmud Zenki, right? And the way he enters the scene, I'll describe him later, was admirable. The city fell, everybody was disappointed. Nuruddin gathers all his knights and commands everybody, 2 horses. And during nighttime, no sleep. We full gallop towards the city of Edessa. If the horse is tired, switch horses. By Fajr time, he reaches the city of Edessa. The Franks are celebrating and drinking, and he attacks. And he takes the city back from them. And he does not wait. Next day, he goes out from the city of Edessa, starts attack different Frankish forts around the city. And he starts for the next months doing what? Attacking and gaining, attacking and gaining. What is he doing? Don't think we're still here and we are more powerful than before. So when Nuruddin Zenki appeared that way, people were like kind of shocked. This is like, who's this man? Who's this young man that chivalrous that appeared of nowhere and did this, and now he's fighting the Franks, right? Nuruddin Zenki is, I'll tell you this. So let's describe him quickly, right? So Ibn al-Athir says, I studied the biographies of righteous people, wal-Khulafa, and he says, after the 4 rightly guided caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman, and Ali, and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, I've seen no ruler more just or more fair or more pious than Nuruddin Zenki, right? So Nuruddin Zenki is at that level, right? If I was to describe him quickly, and we'll do more, right? Again, we said Imaduddin was what? A soldier, right? And what was his technique? Unity and justice. Nuruddin was completely different. Why? Imaduddin wasn't a scholar, but he loved the shuyukh, he loved the scholars. So what did he do with his son? See how the change happens. I want you to see that. I'm not a scholar, I'm a soldier. But I understand the Quran is important and I honor scholars. My son, he left his son be raised by the scholars of the time. So Nuruddin Zenki was now a full scholar. So he's not only a knight, this is literally a scholar. He has ijazah in hadith, memorized the Quran, a faqih in the Hanafi fiqh, wrote books about jihad. He loves scholars, scholars love him. They describe, if Imaduddin Zenki, you go to his session, he's surrounded by who? Soldiers. So if you enter to the majlis of Imaduddin, commander so-and-so, commander so-and-so, helmets, right? Nuruddin Zenki, you enter to his majlis, who's there? And what type of scholars? The Al-Hafidh ibn Asakir. Al-Hafidh ibn Asakir, one of the greatest hadith scholars of the time. Hafidh ibn Asakir, he lived in the time. This is a hadith scholar known for his works, right? And is a very well-known scholar. He used to be with Nuruddin Zenki in his majlis. Just to let you know who Hafidh ibn Asakir is, when I was preparing this, Al-Hafidh ibn Asakir has a book about Damascus. It's called The History of Damascus, Tarikh Dimashq. So I said, interesting, let me get that book. This is a hadith scholar writing the history of Damascus. So I went to Jarir bookstore here, and I said, yeah, Jarir, I want Tarikh Dimashq al-Hafidh ibn Asakir. He said, I have it. And I said, okay, I want to buy it. He said, okay, $1,000. I was like, what? What's this? $1,000? Why? He said, do you know what you're speaking about? And I said, yeah, Tarikh Dimashq. He said, do you know what you're speaking about? It's 80 volumes. What? And I was like, what? Tarikh Dimashq 80 volume? What is this kind of... So this is the type of scholar we're speaking about, right? But this is the type of scholar that taught Nuruddin Zenki. So Nuruddin Zenki was a scholar. He loved the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now Nuruddin Zenki method was different. He believed in the same thing like his father. Unity is important. That's very important. Justice is extremely important. The difference is what? The how. It has to be done in accordance of Sharia. Nothing more. Somebody steals, you crucify him, that's not allowed. I don't care less. So he was not only, I want unity. How do you achieve unity? I cannot achieve unity using harshness. This is not the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So his method was, I achieve unity of Muslims through the verse. the Quran says a very interesting verse. Again, when scholars have a different way of looking at the Quran, tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين. It is Allah that aided you, O Prophet, with His aid and the believers around you. وألف بين قلوبهم, and it's Allah that united the hearts of those believers and made them love each other. لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بينهم. If you were to spend all the wealth of this earth and all the techniques trying to unify the hearts of those people, you will never be able to do that. But it's Allah that can unify them. So Nuruddin Zinki, the only way for us to unite is La ilaha illallah. This ummah cannot be united in anything else. And trust me, we tried. I'm from the era when we had the Arab nationalism. Nasser, and from Egypt, we're all Arabs. Egypt and Syria and Arab nationalism. Salahuddin is not even an Arab, for God's sake. Right? He's Kurdish, right? It didn't work. It doesn't work. What makes us bond? Unfortunately, I'll give you, you'll laugh, but it's true, right? Mission Viho Masjid. I'm just saying the name of the masjid. When I came in 2005, I go to the masjid, I'm dressed the way I am. And after 1 year, people don't know me, right? So after 1 year, it happens that I saw some people there. So I spoke in Egyptian, the Egyptian dialect, right? I spoke in Arabic. So another guy came, Enta Masri, you're Arab. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't speak to you for the last year. I thought you're a Pakistani. I was like, what? Tell me, what is this? Yeah, I'm dressed this way. But wait a minute. So if I'm a Pakistani, you're not speaking to me? Is this how we unite Arabs? You see, that's a problem. So the problem for us today, what unites us? The Arab Spring, when it happened, what did we see? Nationalism. Egypt, Libya, Syria. What's going on? You see this? So Nuruddin Zinki was clear. This is not an Arab problem. It's not a Turkish problem. It's a Muslim problem. One nation under La ilaha illallah, under Sunni Islam. Turkish, Kurdish, Arab, Moroccan, doesn't matter at all. Nobody's favored, right? Taqwa is the way we favor. And unite people through scholarship. Unite people by uniting their hearts. That's the technique he's going to use. And you'll see that, right? Unlike his father, he's a very different man. Nevertheless, the first challenge that, oh my God, it's like 9 o'clock. So when do we stop, by the way? 9:20? Like, so really, like a... So 10 more minutes, how, I just... How active are you guys? That's like, Bismillah, right? Right. So the first thing that happened that Nuruddin Zinki faced, unfortunately, was what? After he recovered the city of Edessa, the counter-attack came. Remember we said a counter-attack was coming? The news came. The kings of Europe landed, and now they are preparing to attack the Muslims. And Nuruddin Zinki, now this is another crusade. That's a major showdown, right? And he's expecting they're going to attack the city of Edessa, right? They want to take it back. But a problem happened. The kings of Europe came. Those are the kings. They met in Jerusalem, right? And then they said, okay, what are we doing? We're attacking the city of Edessa. And then they looked to each other. Edessa is such a small city. We're the kings. This is not a big enough prize, It's a small city. We can't come and all of us together here like kings of Europe and you tell me just attack this city. We need something that's worthwhile. So which is the biggest city that... Damascus, right? But wait a minute, that was the only city that have an allegiance with you. Right? Remember? And guess what happened? So the king of Jerusalem said, wait a minute, those are my allies. This is buddy, we're together. We cannot... And he said, no. What is a word to an infidel? Of course, we don't care less. We are going to attack Damascus. And this crusade, instead of going to Nuruddin, it went to who? Is there a lesson? Be careful. The Quran tells us about al-wala and bara. Be careful of forming allegiance with people not of our faith. Don't rely on them. Be careful, right? They switch on you when politics change, when the winds change, the enemy becomes the foe in a second, right? And that happened. So now all of a sudden, the ruler in Damascus finds what? The campaign is heading towards your city. And they want to take Damascus. Now what does he do? He contacted Nuruddin Zinki. Now remember, like he could have said, my dad, you remember what you did, right? Like you guys, you're a traitor, right? What do you think Nuruddin Zinki did? Remember the response of the Sultan earlier when he said, I will never help again? Nuruddin Zinki, no hesitation. Traitor or not, it's not about you. If the Franks are going to attack the city of Damascus, I cannot wait. He gathered all his forces, everybody in his kingdom, left his kingdom, and he went to help the city of Damascus, right? And his technique was what? This is a major crusade. So he started, the city is well fortified, right? So he started what? A long war. Not a major attack. He started to do what? Surround them and keep harassing them day and night, day and night, day and night. Attacks, 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 attacks. Months started to pass. The city is well fortified, but they're not only fighting the city. Every single day they have to fight this other guy who comes from behind. And the situation was dragging, right? And then something really interesting happened. The ruler of Damascus did the following. He sent a letter. Sent the letter to the king of Jerusalem. And he said, wait a minute. We had a good relation before. Those new people, if they take the city of Damascus, they're probably going to take your city too. And you will have no one else, right? So why don't you take your army of Jerusalem and go back and I'll pay you some money. Then he contacted the Franks of Europe that landed and he told them the following. Do you see Nuruddin Zinki? This is the king of the Muslims. And if you do not leave, I am going to deliver the city of Damascus to him. Do you want Nuruddin Zinki to have Damascus and Aleppo and Al-Mosul? I don't think this is a good idea. So what do you propose? I'll give you a handsome, good sum of money, a small fort here and there, and go and attack another city. What is he alluding to? Aleppo's right there. Look, the situation is not good. You're surrounded, no progress. I'll give you a good sum of money, go attack another city. And that's exactly what happened. The Franks finally gave siege of Damascus, so the siege failed. This major campaign, months could not take the city. Nuruddin Zinki was successful there. Some of them left to Jerusalem. Some of them took the money and left to Europe. The remaining started marching north. Nuruddin Zinki meets them and defeats them in a major battle. And what happened is the Muslims were, do you mean to tell me that this crusade was just defeated? The answer is yes. Do you see the change? Something is different. This is not about just Nuruddin. Those soldiers, those people are different from the people before them, right? And I'm going to just say one more event and I'll discuss the character of Nuruddin and we'll finish today. So if you have to give me 10 minutes more, inshallah. Right? Type. So let's say this. So Nuruddin Zinki, maybe I'll say one event and we'll stop here, right? He defeated them in a major battle. Now, Nuruddin Zinki's method of expansion was really interesting, right? He used scholars. So as I said, his majlis, if you go with Nuruddin Zinki, right? Let's quickly describe his character, right? He's surrounded by scholars, right? To the extent that some of his commanders were jealous. You know, some of the military leaders, we're the leaders. So they were jealous of the scholars around Nuruddin. One of them went to Nuruddin one time and started backbiting. You know, jealousy, sometimes envy. Envy is a disease, right? So he was envious. Those scholars that turbans around you, we're doing the work. So he started bashing one of the scholars around Nuruddin Zinki. Now, the response of Nuruddin Zinki shows you who he is. Nuruddin Zinki kept quiet, and the man is bashing and then he said the following, Ya Hadha. Oh, this, he called him Ya Hadha. The man you're bashing has two good qualities. That's ilm, knowledge, and deen. And even if what you said is correct about him, shouldn't I be patient over him while he has so many good qualities? As the likes of you. You have no ilm and no deen. and I'm patient over the likes of you. And I don't believe what you said about him. And what you're doing is called ghiba. And if you ever backbite anybody in my presence again, I will discipline you myself. Ghiba is not allowed. Period. You see, like his. So Nuruddin Zinki's majlis is a majlis of ilm, majlis of knowledge, right? One time a scholar entered on Nuruddin Zinki, and he used to listen to them. And that scholar started saying poetry where he actually attacked Nuruddin. And he attacked him in one point. And that was, you are taking taxes from people. Before that, the concept of tax. We're in California, how much do you pay? Right? We pay a hefty amount of taxes, right? And people back then, they were taxed, right? Especially in Egypt, it was horrible. You were taxed even to drink from the river. It was just terrible. And in Islam, that's not allowed. You're not allowed to tax people. I work. Why do you take 20% and 10% and 30% and 50%? For God's sake, are you my partner or what, right? This taxation it's not permissible. Islam doesn't say that. So that scholar told him, you're taxing people left and right. And this is haram. A lot of those mukus and dara'ib and what are you going to say in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he asks you about the people that you took their money off? Nuruddin Zinki, upon hearing this, fell into tears. And then on the spot, ordered, write a letter to every single governor I have in every single city. From today, 0% taxes. All taxes are abolished. And ask people, tell them that Nuruddin Zinki is asking for your forgiveness. And let them know, all the taxes I collected from them, I used to fight the Franks. So he started what? Imagine if you have a governor in California tomorrow and 0% taxes. See? Like really, right? He will be like, and what will happen to the economy? Because people say, hey, wait a minute, the economy is going to get destroyed, right? The economy thrived. Because Nuruddin Zinki did something else. I don't make people spend by taking. You use scholars to tell people the concept of sadaqah. Tasaddaq, tasaddaq, tasaddaq. So the scholars of the time were emphasizing al-badl. Giving for the sake of Allah, giving for the sake of Allah, giving for the sake of Allah, not by force. And people started, it was an era of generosity. And I can speak about it like in that time, Sheikh Abdul Qadir was there. A situation that we have in the books of history shows you that generation. A woman comes to Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, tells him, look, this man proposed to me, he wants to marry me. So I asked for a dowry, right? In dowry. So how much did she ask for? Said, my dowry is he works for you in your school for 1 year for free. Imagine if somebody gets married, I'm giving the sisters ideas here, right? And you say, my dowry is you go work in Yorba Linda Masjid for the next year for free. 8 hours a day, that's my dowry. Right? So it's another way of badl. Giving is not only money, it's time, it's service. Right? So when the economy started thriving, Nuruddin Zinki did something else, you'll be shocked. He was the one that said he started banning wine and vulgar drinking and dancing from his army. The army before Nuruddin Zinki, Muslim armies used to drink. When they're soldiers, they want to celebrate, they start drinking. And he said, what are we doing? This is not permissible. Throughout my kingdom, there is nothing as selling, if you're a Muslim, it's not allowed to sell wine. He shut down all the pubs. They had pubs, yes. And today, some Muslim countries, we see strange things happening in some Muslim countries. No comment, right? That Nuruddin Zinki was like, this is not allowed. He's the one that cut this down, right? His salary, you know what his salary was? Look what he did. He said, what is the lowest salary in my kingdom? Imagine if our president comes, what is the minimum wage in California? $17. Biden should take $17 an hour. That's what he did. He said, my salary is the lowest salary in my kingdom. Of the things that he did, schools. He started building, look, before Nuruddin Zinki, there was maybe 8 schools. After him, there were 42 schools. In Aleppo, he built 8 schools. Why? Aleppo was the center of what? Remember? Ismailis. So one of the things he did in Aleppo is what? I need to reform the minds of people. 8 schools. With what? Again, the same way, full scholarship. Scholars, he loved the hadith so much, he built a hadith school. And the teacher is Al-Hafidh ibn Asakir. Right? So a major reform started happening in the time of Nuruddin Zinki. There are many other things, right, that I'll discuss next time. I just want to finish with one situation. I don't know. It's 9:15, so I'll do this and we'll stop. Is it okay? 5 minutes, right? So it's a good point to stop. Something happened that again shows us the character of Nuruddin Zinki. Remember, Damascus is still having an alliance with Jerusalem, right? Now, the Franks realized Nuruddin Zinki is very powerful. Yearly, he was attacking them. And yearly, when you read the books, victory after victory, right? He was really a problem for the Franks. But the Franks started to notice Egypt is very weak. So if the north is becoming strong, maybe the Franks should focus their attack where? Egypt, right? Now, the city of Asqalan is the entry to Egypt. And the Franks marched, attacked the city of Asqalan, and took the city from the Egyptians. When this happened, Nuruddin Zinki was extremely alarmed. The Franks are heading towards Egypt. And if they take Egypt, this is the biggest country in the Middle East, huge country. It's a wealthy country. It's a disaster, right? And it's an Ismaili country now, right? And it's weak. So he had to say, I have to stop them. So I need to fight in the south. So he contacted the ruler of Damascus and he said, I don't want anything. Just can you allow me to use Damascus as a base, to get weapons, so I can march. I want to use Damascus so I can attack them in Asqalan. What do you think the ruler of Damascus did? No, he contacted the Franks. Nuruddin Zinki is coming. It's dangerous. The Franks came to Damascus and he started dealing with them, and they started, putting camps around the city, started destroying the farms, doing what they did to people around Damascus, and the news reached Nuruddin Zinki. Nuruddin Zinki was really upset that Damascus now has the Franks around it and Muslims are suffering and the ruler of Damascus doesn't mind. So he contacted all the scholars. He had a good relation with all the scholars in the kingdom, including the scholars of Damascus. This was his technique, right? And then he pointed out this is not permissible. So he gathered his army, went to the city of Damascus, right? And he sent this letter, which is very important. It shows you Nuruddin. Send this letter to the ruler of Damascus. And I want you to see how he's speaking. He says the following: I have not pitched camp here in order to make war against you. I'm not like my dad. I'm not using force. I don't want to do that. It's only the complaints of the Muslims that have induced me to act this way. The farmers, they have been despoiled. It's injustice. And the Franks are doing terrible things to them, and there is no one to defend them. Notice this line. Since God bestowed on me power and strength, it is not permissible for me to watch and do nothing. I hope you understand what I'm speaking about. If God gave me strength and I have an army and my brothers in Gaza are suffering, it's not permissible for me to sit and just make dua and do nothing. He said, Allah, if I'm not in a weak position that this would suffice, Allah gave me the ability to act. I have an army, I have strength, therefore it will be haram for me to sit back and do nothing. I have to respond to their call, right? That's why I came. And then look what he says. Especially that I know you're unable to protect them. And I'm aware of your degeneration, which led you to seek the aid of the Franks and deliver goods of your poorest people to them, people whom you criminally wronged. This pleases neither God or any other Muslim. Do you see how Nuruddin Zinki is acting, right? So I'm not here to fight you and remove you. I'm not interested, right? I'm interested in unity. When this message reaches the people in Damascus and the scholars of Damascus, how do Muslims feel about Nuruddin? Do you see how he's appearing? Righteous, scholarly, right? Following the Prophet ﷺ, just, right? So Muslims loved Nuruddin Zinki. And his technique was very interesting. He started sending messages to all the scholars in the city of Damascus. Eventually, what happened? Those are scholars, right? They started talking to the people. They started talking to some of the soldiers in Damascus. And a group of soldiers and people decided enough is enough with this ruler. So they sent a letter to Nur ad-Din, tomorrow after Fajr, come to this gate, we are opening the gate to you. And Nur ad-Din Zinki marches, Fajr time, they open the gate, Nur ad-Din Zinki enters the city. And Nur ad-Din Zinki takes the city of Damascus without a bloodshed. His dad tried what? Force, strength. The Quran tells us, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. He said, the Prophet ﷺ, it's the leniency and easygoing character and good character. It's a rahmah of Allah that made people gather around you. If you are harsh, strong, and they will disperse away from you. So Nur ad-Din Zinki won the hearts of people. The difference was his dad united people by the sword. He united the hearts of people using scholars. You get the idea? So people open, and now Nur ad-Din Zinki enters Damascus. What does he do to the ruler? He doesn't kill him. He tells him, okay, you know what? You cannot rule Damascus. He gave him a small fort and said him, go, rule this fort. Why do you think he did that? Why didn't he just kill him? Sting strategy. Exactly. You want, if you start killing people and other rulers will never go to you. He wants to show people what I am interested in unity. I don't hurt. Please open the gates. Don't worry. I don't harm others. Right? You see the idea here, right? So Nur ad-Din Zinki succeeds in uniting the city of Damascus. We'll finish with this. He wasn't always successful. The Franks realized that Nur ad-Din Zinki is extremely dangerous, and he yearly attacks them. So one year, they laid an ambush for them. They gathered all the forces, and they predicted an attack. And Nur ad-Din Zinki, as usual, he was heading for an attack. They gathered their army, and Fajr time, before and they attacked his camp. And they took Nur ad-Din Zinki's army by surprise. And it is said the army of Nur ad-Din Zinki could not put a fight back because they weren't ready. And the knights charged with their horses, the Templars and the Hospitallers, it was formidable knights, and they overran the Muslim. And they went all the way till Nur ad-Din Zinki's tent. It was one soldier that gave him a horse, and Nur ad-Din Zinki told him and he barely escaped with his life. What happened in this battle? It was a major defeat, but it was a major victory for Nur ad-Din. Because what happened in this battle? Nur ad-Din Zinki runs a couple of miles, then he stops, starts gathering his knights. So he gathered 1,000 knights. So he laid camp. And one of the scholars went to him and said, Ya Sayyidi, this is dangerous. The Franks are there, and you put a camp here, they're going to come and attack you. And he said, if Allah gives me 1,000 knights, I'm not going to run away from them. I will fight them. And then this scholar told him, Ya Sayyidi, this is dangerous. And said, Ya Mawlay, la. For God's sake, don't do that. Why? You're too valuable. This is too risky. It's too dangerous. You're on 1,000 knights, they'll probably kill you. And then what happens to Islam and Muslims if you die? Please, you're the one that united us. We need you. And we will be lost without you. Please don't do this. And Nur ad-Din Zinki fell into tears. And he told this scholar the following. Who is Nur ad-Din Zinki that you tell him those words? Who protected Islam before Nur ad-Din Zinki? That is Allah, alladhi la ilaha illa hu. If I die, do you think this is a lesson in Tawheed. Are you relying on me or are you relying on Allah? You think it's me that's protecting Islam? No. Every single ruler we have, they think nobody else can do the job but them. Nur ad-Din Zinki says, no. If I die, Allah will bring another. Allah's there, don't worry. I want to die for this. He used to fight with 2 swords, right? And then people told him, Ya Mawlay, you give so much charity to the people studying, those scholars and the people in the masajid. We need the money so we protect them. Give us the money so we have another army to protect them. You're giving so much, scholarship, if you will. And he looked at them and he quoted a hadith. He said, you want me to take money from people that fight for me day and night with arrows that never miss, and give it to you that fight Only when I'm there and by data and your arrows miss, their dua is arrows that never miss. And then he quoted the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. عن سعد بن أبي وقاص عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال هل تنصرون إلا بضعفائكم. Do you think that you attain victory except by the dua of the weak among you and the righteous among you? Their dua. Do you think? Why is that an important lesson? He believes in the power of dua. It's easy to say this here, but when you're defeated and you need the money and you say, no, the people in the masjid, they fight like you. Do we have this? Do we believe in dua that much? Do you get the idea? This is who Nuruddin Zinki is. That's why he's a very special person. You see, his tawakkul underlines on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before stopping, there is one thing I wanted to share with you. It's a game. Let's go back to it. Where is it? This game, yeah. And this is something, I'll describe it for you and I'll tell you what it's about next time. So you can see there is a QR code in the wall here and there, right? So please, it will take you 2 minutes. And this is about the following. I want you to choose a number. Choose a number between 0 to 100, right? And here is what we're going to do. So people will choose different numbers. I'm going to take all the numbers and average the numbers. And then divide by 2. Do you get it? So I'll average all the numbers that you guys pick, divide the result by 2. If the number you picked is the closest to this result, you win. I'm supposed to say you win $1,000, but no, I don't have $1,000. So what number would you pick? Right? Now, I'm not going to tell you why and what does this have to do with what we're teaching. This is a very interesting exercise. It actually measures something. I'm doing it for a reason, right? So I'm not going to tell you anything, right? So just please do what, scan it. Tell me what number you pick. That's it, right? And next time, I'm going to tell you the result and what this is about, inshallah. Here, type. I do have the armor here, I brought a shield, and like the sword. So if you want to take pictures or use them, please go ahead. I also have the books. Somebody asked for books for kids. There is one book about Salahuddin for kids that I would recommend. I have it with me. If you're interested, please come and meet me after the class, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير.